Well, RFK Jr. is reportedly about to drop a hammer on autism, connecting Tylenol, acetaminophen, pushed on newborns for decades, that is now linked to over almost more than half of all autism cases in the United States. So get ready for Bobby Kennedy to drop that hammer. The study shows that mothers who took Tylenol while pregnant, I think the number is 300% increase in autism. But it's remarkable. So we're going to wait on that one. But first, we had some breaking news just a short time ago. Right before our show today, President Trump posted an unbelievable post on Truth Social. A lot of people thought it was fake, but no, it was real. He posted it on his own Truth Social account. A short video featuring a doctor who claims that all vaccines are essentially have some form of poison or toxin in them. They're using thimerosal, essentially mercury, tetanus shots specifically, flu shots. Those were called out in the video. People are like, what? Wait, what? Trump just posted this video? What is happening here? Steve Kirsch from the Vaccine Safety Research Foundation also fell off his chair. Actually, I don't know if that's true. When he saw this, Steve has been fighting for truth on this subject for most of his life. He's given his life to this subject. Steve, first on that, before we talk about RFK and Tylenol, like, what's your thought about President Trump posting this video about poisons and toxins in vaccines?
Certainly surprised me. And when I saw it, I thought, could that be fake? It's been reposted on X. And so it's legitimate. And he has a good backing to be concerned. And we'll see what comes of that. But definitely the science is there showing that vaccines can contain things like thimerosal and aluminum, which get into people's brains and they stay there. Then Professor Christopher Exley has been studying this for decades, and he finds that people who have autism, when they die and they can cut their bodies and look at their brains, and they've never seen accumulations of aluminum that are as high as they are in people with autism. So there's definitely a connection there.
Well, what the liberal media will say is that it's damaging to say this at all, to ask these questions. They act like vaccines are a protected class, like veterans or lesbians, or you can't say anything against those types of things. But vaccines are not a protected class. They were never studied in combination. Doctors willy-nilly decide which ones to give at any given time, and we have no study behind that. And so what would you say to the liberal media that treats you like a baby and says, you can't put these doubts in your head, we shouldn't ask these questions?
Oh, well, science is all about questioning what the facts are, and we should never be taking things for granted as a scientist. And so it's just really, really important that we look at the data and we follow what the data says, not what people believe. And for way too long, we've been following what people believe. And so, for example, the belief is that vaccines don't cause autism, and yet we have a study that was done by the CDC back in 2004. And we have testimony from William Thompson, the CDC scientist who was in charge of that study, saying he was ordered to destroy all the evidence that linked vaccines and autism. And we're not talking about just regular evidence here. We're talking about statistically significant evidence. And so when the CDC found an association back in 2000 between vaccines and autism, they ordered the scientists to delete, and actually they had a little meeting where they had a trash bin, and everybody was supposed to put their documents that showed that the vaccines were linked with autism in that trash can so that they could then destroy the contents of the trash can. So that was the way that the CDC dealt with evidence that it didn't like. Now, most people would think that that's not very scientific, and they would be correct. That is not the way science is supposed to operate. That is extremely corrupt, and no science should be done that way.
So, Steve, let's talk about Tylenol. And can see in our chat room, people are confused about this Tylenol segment. or specifically what RFK is about to come out and talk about, because people are saying, no, it probably has nothing to do with Tylenol. It's all about vaccines. But I think what RFK is going to talk about with Tylenol being linked to autism is that they're in tandem, that it's vaccines on the one hand, potentially, yes, causing these problems, but also Tylenol, yes. The combination of which I don't even want to think about. So can you talk about that? They're not mutually exclusive. We're not just saying, hey, the problem isn't vaccines at all. Tylenol is just also another huge problem, it seems, right?
That's correct. But they're not. It's not. Tylenol is not an independent problem. It's linked. So if you were to just get vaccines, you can get autism. If you get a vaccine and then you get inflammation, you get a fever, and your doctor prescribes Tylenol for that, that actually makes things worse. So there's going to be a connection between Tylenol and autism, but it's not the root cause. You can't just take Tylenol and become autistic. The Tylenol is simply amplifying your chances. It's like getting an additional bite at the apple to become autistic, and the Tylenol essentially just raises your chances of becoming autistic. And
like
so
within
it's kind of a 1-2 punch.
Time frame of getting the vaccine, if you take Tylenol as a response, because sorry.
Yep. Generally within the fever happens within 24 hours after you get the vaccine. You take the Tylenol, and that just makes things worse. So it's very temporal to the vaccine. You take Tylenol at other times, it's much less likely to result in autism.
Okay.
And what's so unbelievable to me is that so many pregnant women are just kind of handed this at the hospital. You know, they're just given this. So when we talk about like the pregnancy side of this, and women who are pregnant, they're given this.
Well,
what part of that is tied to? I'm just curious, like the vaccine piece of this. You know, because this seems to be a major concern, at least from the reports, that it's pregnant women specifically being given this Tylenol.
Well, it's not. The Tylenol is really affecting the child. It's when the child gets vaccinated and takes the Tylenol. It's not so much in a pregnant woman.
No, he's saying a child.
Okay.
Because when you take your child to get a vaccine, they will say, if they get a fever, you can give them Tylenol, but don't take an Advil or something like that because you want to have an inflammatory response. So Tylenol does not reduce inflammation. An Advil or a Motor or something of that class will. And so they tell you specifically that is an acceptable response to a fever caused by vaccine. And
it's basically the worst thing that you can take. And so I think that what's going to be revealed is this connection between autism and Tylenol, but there's no doubt that the vaccines are the root cause of autism. So he's taking it, I think, one step at a time here. And, there are things like the McDowell triplets that I'm not aware of any time in history, in the entire human history, where triplets became autistic within hours of each other. And the only time that has happened that I'm aware of is within hours after taking a vaccine, where the triplets are vaccinated. They're all vaccinated at the same time. And then within hours of each other, the triplets all become suddenly autistic, where they were totally normal before. Now, there's no way you can explain anything like that. This is a rare event, and it just so happens that it happened within about 2 hours or so after the triplets were given a vaccine. And it simply defies credibility to think that it's anything other than the vaccines causing that autism.
Ladies and gentlemen, our bodies are under attack, not just from the air we breathe, our food, or the food we eat, but everything. We're being exposed to mRNA technology injected into our food supplies, spreading through shedding, and now 5G radiation saturating our environments with frequencies we still don't fully understand. Threats disrupt our biology at the cellular level, weakening our immunity, inflaming our systems, damaging our gut, and the control center of our health. Everything starts in the gut. That's why we take Kimchi 1 from Bright Core Nutrition. Each capsule is packed with over 900 strains of probiotics. I take it every day. It has live enzymes, antioxidants to flush out your toxins. I take 3 of these pills every day as part of like my morning supplements routine. And right now you can get 25% off with the code REDACTED. If you go to mybrightcore.com/redacted, yes, it's made with fermented kimchi. Kimchi is all natural, non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, 100% made in the USA by a company that truly cares about your health and your freedom. This company has been Maha before the Maha movement even existed. They've been around for decades. So I'm a huge fan of these guys. I use it every day. Just check out the website. Like that credit card there, that's the amount of plastic that you're ingesting on a regular basis from these microplastics. And Kimchi 1 can help flush all of that out of your body, naturally detox. The best part is you get 25% off when you go to the website, mybrightcore.com/redacted. But the really great part is you get 50% off if you just call them, and you get free shipping. And on top of it, if you call them, you'll get a free bottle of vitamin D3 with your order, because guess what? They're an American company and they actually like to develop relationships with their customers. Imagine that in this day and age, not just some automated system. So call 888-404-6312 and talk to them on the phone. Get 50% off and free shipping. That's mybrightcore.com/redacted, or just call them 888-404-6312. So we have the Tylenol piece, and I think you're right. Maybe this is like the sort of canary in a coal mine thing. We're going to get the Tylenol bit out there. And I also find it very curious. And then we'll move on to vaccines. Maybe it seems like that's what RFK is doing here, but I don't know exactly. But I find it interesting, Steve, that back in 2023, Johnson & Johnson spun off Tylenol from their main holdings and formed a new LLC under which to house Tylenol. It's almost as if they knew this was coming. I don't know. I just find it very curious that they decided to spin this off and protect it, legal shield liability underneath another LLC. Don't you?
That's like Deborah Birx going to Texas and having the measles outbreak. Just happened to be in the town in Texas where Deborah Birx has moved to. So there's some interesting coincidences that happen, and we often find that these coincidences are not just coincidences, but there's something behind them. So in this case, it seems pretty likely that they did that in order to shield themselves from liability, to reduce any kind of liability that they might have.
Well, can I ask a question really quick, Steve?
Yeah, go ahead, David.
So I know, Steve, you've studied the Amish community extensively. Like, do they deal with autism the same way we do?
I don't know how they deal with autism because there's so little of it in the Amish community. So I traveled to Pennsylvania to talk to them personally and meet them in person, see how they live, and get to know them. And I couldn't find an autistic child who is not vaccinated, right? Because not all Amish children are fully unvaccinated. A large number are, but there's some children that are vaccinated. But I couldn't find an unvaccinated Amish child who has autism. And so, people should be studying that to say, what's different? And should we study Amish children who were vaccinated versus Amish children who were not vaccinated? That study just never seems to get done. But we know, because I know of a clinic, and they're located in the United States. I won't say where, because I don't want the doctors to have their medical license revoked. But these doctors recommend to the parents, do not vaccinate your child for anything. And every parent that took that advice, none of their kids were autistic, became autistic. And this is over 25 years. And this is in a community where the autism rates are the highest in the nation. So how is it that this one little clinic, which does one thing differently, which is to say, don't vaccinate your kids, they have no autism in 25 years? And of course, we can't tell the story about it because they don't want to get outed and have their medical licenses taken away, because that would be a disservice to their patients and to the community. So the story basically is not told in the medical literature.
Now,
crazy.
I'm noticing again how, mainstream politicians are reacting to RFK Jr. Just today, Liz Warren, senator from Massachusetts, is going crazy about indications that RFK Jr. might limit access to the abortion drugs. And she says on X, the abortion drug is absolutely safe, and this is misinformation. But there is a lot of indication that mifepristone, I think is how you say it, has high levels of complications. Why can't she just say this? That's misinformation to say that this is unequivocally safe. The fact that a U.S. senator can just say this, there's not a community note as far as I know on this post yet. Doesn't it make you crazy bonkers bananas that they can say things like this while ignoring real world data of harm?
Well, I would love to appear before a Senate panel and ask them those questions. They tend to switch it around to say, hey, we're asking the questions here. Like when Bobby Kennedy, in his hearing, he tried to ask questions of the senators, and the senators simply flatly refused to answer any of his questions that he threw back at them. So that tells you a lot. But yeah, I would love to be able to question these senators as to what evidence do they actually have to back these claims that are absurd. The most egregious, of course, is that vaccines don't cause autism. And they'll wave these papers saying, well, Mr. Kennedy, look, there are these 10 papers that show no link between vaccines and autism. But you see, a paper that finds no link is just a flawed study that's unable to find evidence of a link. It's like a detective on a murder scene. He doesn't find a killer. That doesn't mean there wasn't a killer. That just means that he wasn't able to find it. And these studies are deliberately designed not to find a signal. The studies in Denmark, for example, the autism, typically it's diagnosed at a fairly young age, but in Denmark it's diagnosed at a different age, and the vaccine schedule is different in Denmark as well. And so trying to thinking that you can replicate a study that was done in the U.S. and then failing to replicate it in Denmark doesn't mean anything. But most people don't know that because most people don't know the Danish system. So it looks like, they couldn't replicate, they couldn't find a link between vaccines and autism. It's there, and it's there in spades. I know Dr. Doug Holstead in California, he had 44 cases of autism in his practice where the autism happened kind of overnight. In other words, the kid is just normal, and then within a day, just exhibits extreme signs of autism. And in those 44 cases, in every single one of them, they happened within a week after the child was vaccinated. Not a week before, but a week after. That's like flipping a coin 44 times and getting heads each time. It's not a fair coin. It means that something caused that, and the only possible link there is the vaccines. I have yet to find a child who became autistic right before their wellness check.
Right. Good point. Nicholas Hulsher, doctor, he's an epidemiologist, administrator at the McCullough Foundation. I think you know him well. He's going to be at the Senate hearing tomorrow, and he just tweeted that he is about to unveil a long-hidden vaccinated versus unvaccinated study, and he says it's over for the vaccine cartel. Any thoughts on that before we let you go, Steve?
I tried calling Nick earlier today, and he just got his voicemail, so maybe that's the reason. He's probably on a plane to D.C. That would explain it. But yeah, he's a great guy. We talk often. He didn't mention this to me, so I guess they're keeping it pretty under wraps. So this is, I think this will be some pretty damning evidence. But there have been all these studies that show that vaccinated kids have higher rates of autism, ADHD, chronic diseases. They have sexual orientation issues, and there's such a long list of things that are associated with vaccination that people don't realize. the allergies, for example, strongly linked to vaccination. So lots of these things, lots of these chronic diseases are all linked to autism, which is why kids who don't have any, in every single study, there have been 10 studies in the peer-reviewed literature, in 100% of those studies comparing the fully vaxxed versus fully unvaxxed, the unvaxxed kids are always healthier on every single metric that they look at.
Wow. Well, I think the dam is finally starting to break. And, obviously with a lot of thanks to you and what you guys have been doing at the Vaccine Research Center and being able to get this message out there, Steve, thank you for your continued work on this. And, with having the Vaccine Safety Research Foundation, like pushing out, like, hey, we're just asking questions. Like, why are we not allowed to ask questions? That's at the heart of it, right?
And more importantly is, why won't anyone answer them on camera? We can't have a discussion on camera with anyone about these issues. I've got a friend at the CDC press office, and I said, hey, I'd like to be able to I've got some pretty critical questions that I would love to have someone at the CDC answer as to, for example, hey, what study are you guys relying on where you think that the vaccines are actually saving lives? Because every single study I'm aware of are extremely flawed. So where's the study that was well done, where you actually looked at the non-COVID all-cause mortality of the unvaccinated to make the claim that the vaccine saved lives? Because I sure as heck can't find one. And I asked for the answer to these questions about 2 months ago, and I've still received nothing.
Jeez. Well, because they don't have it.
Yeah.
Right. That's at the heart of it, Steve. You know that. Propaganda works, though, right? And they'll call you anti-vaxxer.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Steve, great to see you. Thank you so much for this. We really appreciate it. And we'll be watching what happens at this Senate hearing this week. And we'll be watching what happens with Tylenol and autism in September. It's going to be a very busy September. So keep your phone ready. We're gonna have you back on in the next few weeks.
Definitely will be. This will be an exciting month, Clayton. Thank you.
Yeah.